What's on the agenda today, Mark?
We're making Chinese braised pork belly. This is my favourite. So we're on step one, which is to put the pork belly into some boiling water to get some of the fat to come out. It's quite a fatty meat. Morrison's sell it in like strips, but it's better if you can buy like a big slab of it. So you just put it in some boiling water for about 5 minutes, and what you'll see on the top is like loads of sort of scum will come off. So we get rid of that because that's horrible, and then we can start making it nice.
Now what?
Well, as you can see, there's some yummy scummy stuff that's come out of the pork. We don't want to eat that because it's a bit minging, so we're going to skim that off. And yeah, that was the purpose of this stage, to get the excess crap out of it.
Danger time part 1?
No, the danger is later. So I've removed my scum, and I'm just going to drain it in a colander. If you put it in, start frying it, / cooking it like this, it will spit everywhere. So we'll leave it there to sort of steam dry a little bit before we chop it up. So my porky pork has drained. I'm just patting it dry with a bit of kitchen paper. You can see there's all this water coming out of it. So now I'm going to chop Mr. Pork into bite-sized pieces. Ish. You can cut the skinny bits off if you like, but I leave them on because I'm a pig. If there's any extra fatty bits, just chop them off. Like that bit. Right, so I've chopped it up into little bits and throw away all the gammy bits we don't want. And that's that bit done.
Danger part 2.
Just have to say that today's video is brought to you by Mongo's Degenerate Chav Band. Right, so this is the dangerous bit. You'll have noticed that I've put my jumper back on. This is protective gear. I don't have any goggles. Perhaps I should put my shades on. So what we're going to do now, we have a wok. You can use any kind of frying thing, but I find that a wok tends to keep it in the pan a bit better. So put about a tablespoon of ground nut oil in, and then about 3 tablespoons of caster sugar. You can use palm sugar if you want, but it's a bit of a pain in the bum, so you've got to grate it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sort of a bit of a caramel, and then we're going to add our pork to that, and then fireworks are going to happen. So what tends to happen is the sugar kind of absorbs the oil, and then as it melts it kind of separates again. Remember kids, hot sugar is fucking hot and sticky. So, you know, it takes a little while. As you see it start to melt there. You'll turn the heat down a little bit because we don't want to burn the sugar. We want a little bit of caramelisation, but we don't want like treacle. That's where you've got to get your game face on. I'm not sure if it's meant to be this dangerous, but it is when I do it. Okay, so you'll see now that the sort of sugar and oil are kind of separating and the sugar's melting. We're going to carefully Get it all to melt without going too dark. Of course it sticks to your thing as well, which is why I've just got this spoon, so I can try and get off, keep it in the pan. So, you'll see now that it's kind of caramelised a little bit, we've got a bit of colour on it. So now is the time to be really scary and add the pork. So, stand back as it spits. So, rule number 1 of frying pork belly in sugar. Don't let it sit still too long or the fire out of the pan. They have to keep moving it. And dodge as well, have to dodge when it does that. And then use the tongs to flip it all around. And the recipe says fry skin side down, presumably in an attempt to crisp up the skin. But you try that and see if you live.
Noisy.
So the popping is where I've got it skin side down. It sort of renders the fat out of it and does that. I have on occasion leapt entirely out of the pan halfway across the floor. So the initial stages are the most dangerous. The longer you go, the more relatively safe you become. The point of this is to kind of get the pork to go a bit sort of caramelised and sticky before we add the other ingredients. So you can probably approach the danger station now. I'm sorry if I break the phone. So as you can see, it's still quite pale, but some of it's getting a bit of colour on it. So we'll keep going until it's a nice sort of golden colour. So the trick is to try and get them all nice and evenly caramelised without dying. Okay.
How's the meats looking?
So as you can see, we've now got some nice colour on there, and it's gone all caramelised. You can see like little strings of sugar and stuff. So now it's time to add the rest of the ingredients. So over here we have some dried chilies, 3 of. They go in. Stick of cinnamon, some star anise, 3, and some coarsely chopped ginger, thickly chopped I should say. Just add a bit of a stir in, like so. And now we add some soy sauce. There's about 2 tablespoons of light soy sauce. That's this one, which is saltier and thinner than dark soy sauce, which is thicker, darker and used for colour. So give that a bit of a mix around. And now what we do is we're going to braise this, which basically means cover it in water and put it on a very low heat. Cook it very slowly and very gently until the pork is very tender, which takes about 50 minutes to an hour. So that's it. So we basically play the waiting game now. Let this motherfucker cook. Right, now on to the final stages. So in here we have some jasmine rice and some salted water, which is going to bring to the boil. And as for our lovely pork, as you can see, it's been cooking for about 50 minutes now, so it's all cooked. So what we're going to do, we're going to remove our little flavouring ingredients. It's done its job now. So cinnamon, we'll leave the chilies in because I like chilies, and the star anise can come out. You know, they're a bit crunchy. And we also take Mr. Porky out. Pop it in a little bowl. So we're also going to turn the heat up, because what we're going to do with the remaining liquid, So we're going to reduce that into a yummy sauce. So we've left our sauce on a high heat now to reduce. So you can see it's still quite runny at the moment, but because there's sugar in there, as it starts to reduce, it'll get sort of syrupy. Nice. Importantly, taste it. It's too salty, add sugar. If it's not salty enough, add some more soy sauce. I think it needs a bit more sugar. So a random amount of sugar there. Give it a little stir up. That's better.
What's happening now, Mark?
We're still reducing the sauce, so you can see it's getting nice and thick. We want a nice syrupy texture, so we're going to keep going a little bit more. Mr. Rice is just about to come up to the boil. Doesn't take very long once it's spoiling. That's it really. I'm just going to combine everything together at the end.
Now what?
So the rice is boiling, so that'll only take 5 minutes. Our sauce is nice and thick and yummy, so we're going to add the pork back in. It'll still be hot, but warm it back up a little bit and get it covered in all the sauce. So we shove that back in. It's been a good mix up. Bring it back up to the boil.
So why is this meal your favourite?
It's just so nice, it's just so tasty, it's so nice.
Even though it's massively dangerous.
It's worth the danger. Worth it. I've got quite good at surviving. So we'll just leave that warm through. The sauce will probably reduce down a little bit more. And the last thing we'll need to add is our spring onions, but we don't want to add them in too early because then they'll just go all mushy and horrible. So we'll add them in right in the last minute. Spring onions. So I have 2 spring onions which we will finely chop. Don't know how finely. Reasonably finely, I guess. There we go, chop choppy. And what we do is we reserve a few of those for our little garnish on the top. And the rest are going to go in high. So we're going to bring everything together now. Our rice is ready, our meat's ready. So we're going to add the springy onions, reserving some for the garnish of course. Just shove them in there. And give it a mix. You can see that most of the excess liquid has evaporated now. We've just got like a sort of syrup sauce. Nom 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 nom. And Mr. Rice should be done. Waste not, want not. Just leave that to steam for a minute or two. Action! Go! So the rice is steamed for a couple of minutes. And we're going to put that on the plate.
Surprising.
Indeed. You could pop it in a little mould if you want, make a little rice mountain. Now going to dish up pork belly.
How do you think it went?
You can tell me in a minute.